You're listening to Eat, Play, Sex with Dr. Kat, the place to up-level that sexy life of yours, with expert talk on sex, love, and nutrition.
A moment ago you mentioned about the period and associating that with womanhood, and in my mind I had this little flashback to little Kat. I wasn't so little, but where I didn't start my period until I was 18 as a result of eating disorders for about 11 years. And so having that feeling of like, oh, I can't really relate with anything.
Yeah.
And you dive in deep into the book about your own history of eating disorders, which blew my mind. I literally braced myself. I was like, yes, August, preaching the good word, because there is so much shame about acknowledging that part of us.
Yeah, there really is. And thank you for sharing openly that you have struggled too. I think every time, not everyone needs to speak publicly about these things, but when we do feel compelled to, I think it's so powerful just for someone to go, I love this show, I listen to you, I watch your YouTube, and oh my gosh, you've struggled too. Yeah, it's really important for me to own the parts of my story that are quote unquote not pretty, right?
Right.
And when I do talk about my eating disorder history, I was diagnosed with anorexia initially. Very often in the healing process from anorexia, you go through binge eating and you go through some of the other types of disordered eating behaviors. And I did. And I remember feeling more shame around binging than I did around restriction. And I also got more, sometimes when people hear I had anorexia, I hear things like, I wish I had that discipline, or I could use a little bit of that now. And it doesn't come from an intentionally harmful place. But again, these are these stereotypes that we absorb. All eating disorders are so detrimental and so harmful, and they are illnesses and they are no fun. And so that's why I shared about those things. I try to share responsibly. I know anything can be a little activating for people. So it's important to always take care of ourselves. But I really try to avoid things like the lowest weight I reached or how many calories I was eating, because I've learned that people compare themselves when they're in a dark place.
Right. And wanting to measure where they're at with somebody else. Oh, she's doing better than me. I used to, when I was that age, little Kat used to look up Finspiration and create that comparison. Yeah. But it's so powerful to have these conversations, because it gives people permission to also observe what it's like to see somebody own that part and not just ignore it or shame it. How did you see that experience impact your sexuality during that time?
At the time, looking back, I can see many impacts. One was during my time of struggling with anorexia and really severe restriction and low body weight and all of that, I did not have any desire for sex, really.
Me neither.
Because it kind of, right, it strips away so much, right? And ironically, at the time, I was working the fashion industry, I was modeling. So I was arguably selling sexuality. That's what they say, right? Make love to the camera. And I had zero, what were you saying? Wet ass pussy.
WAP.
Yes, I did not have a WAP. I also lost my period. A lot of things were happening that the physical parts certainly detracted, but then the emotional parts were, of course, the worst. And feeling incredibly lonely. I mean, at the beginning, it felt like an abusive relationship, where at the beginning it's like you're swept off your feet and it's so exciting and everything's shiny, and very quickly it overtakes your life and you can't get out. And so that was really damaging on all of my relationships. I was distanced from literally everyone. Throughout the healing process, sex did start to become an outlet for pleasure for me, and something that was an escape, which I don't know if I've ever really even shared about, but it as we're talking, I'm just remembering these times when I finally could get out of that that negative mindset
Mm.
and that
Mhm.
illness, the grasp of it, because I was really just taken over by this, as what happens when we're aroused. And it's so beautiful that it's like the most mindful and present we can be. It was probably the only time I was present at that time. And then one of the most striking things really in my life was sitting in a college class I was taking at the time when I was in treatment and really just studying to have something else to do. And I took the psychology course. And one day the teacher stood in front of the class and said, "Today we're going to talk about sex." And I had one of those big light bulb moments because I realized I hadn't really talked about sex. I hadn't talked about sex with the guy I was having it with. It was just this
Yeah.
shrouded in secrecy topic. And looking back, I could see that was the moment I stopped wanting to starve myself.
Wow.
I wanted to respect my body. I was
Yeah.
like, I got angry. I was like, why? Why did I not know about any details really about my clitoris? Why did I not know? It blew my mind that I had to ask myself these questions at like age,
Uh-huh.
I think I was 20.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it just set me into like this fury. And I was still struggling with the eating disorder, but
Sure.
that was the beginning of my healing for sure.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, yeah. It's like we want connection and intimacy, but we don't because it interrupts the relationship that we have with the eating disorder, which is a full-time committed relationship
It's so
until it's
true.
not. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 24/7 for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Wow.
Lovers, thank you again for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, hit subscribe and head over to eatplaysex.com to connect with me and grab my sexy guides. Because my goal here is to get you to eat, play, and sex better so you can improve your sex life, which will improve every aspect of your life. Until next time, keep it sexy.